We appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank
Just
you.
a couple of rules. One, keep that mic in front of you at all times so we can make a good record and we can all hear you. And if you start to wander, I may remind you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Would you tell us your name?
Lavoy Randall,
And how do you spell both names, please?
Levoy Randall.
And do you go by something else?
Lee.
Lee. And what would you like me to call you today?
Lee's fine.
Okay, thank you. Sir, what city do you live in? You don't have to give us your address.
Payson, Utah.
Have you lived there a long time?
11 years.
Have you been from Utah originally
Yes,
and lived here most of your life?
most of it.
Are you acquainted with Meggan Sundwall?
That's my daughter.
All right. And could you identify her for the record? Just tell us where she's seated.
She's sitting right there by her attorneys
Okay. I guess what position at the table is she seated?
on the right-hand side.
Thank you. Could you describe for us your relationship with Ms. Sundwall?
I adopted Megan when she was 4. We're close.
And sir, I am,
Sorry, she's, I consider her a very close friend, confident. We do a lot of things together. We go on vacations together. We go to dinner together. I have babysat her son while she was working a second job. Did that answer your question?
yes, sir. And I am deeply sorry for the position that you find yourself in today. Were you also, excuse me, acquainted with Kacee Terry?
Yes,
How did you come to know Kacee Terry?
through Megan. They worked together, so she introduced us. We've known Kacee for 10 years, 11 years. She came to our house for Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, birthday parties. So we knew her well.
Okay. 10 or 11 years since now or since the date of her death?
Oh, I'm sorry. Probably from her, since when she passed.
Okay, so maybe 2015-ish? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's probably true.
Okay. Do you recall what the occupation was where she and your daughter met?
They worked for Chrysalis. It helps people with disabilities.
What was your daughter's role there?
She was a nurse there.
And do you know what Kacee's role was?
She was a house, I'm not quite sure what the title was, but she would be with them at night and make sure that everything was okay in the house.
Okay, the resident patients?
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned doing a number of things, excuse me, with Kacee over the years, dinners, vacation. No, did you say vacations? You said holidays.
We spent, yeah, she would come to our home for holidays.
All right. Why was that?
Because she told us she didn't have any place else to hang out.
Okay. Did Megan and Kacee also live together at some point?
They shared an apartment together for a while.
Do you recall when that was? I know asking yours is difficult.
It was until she got married, so her son is
Kacee or Megan got married?
Megan. He's 6, so 6 years ago, 7 years ago
Okay.
is when they stopped living together.
Did they live together after Meggan got married?
Kacee needed someplace to live, so she moved in with Meggan and her family. That was in Lehigh.
All right, and did they live together somewhere else before that, as far as you're aware?
Not that I can remember.
Okay, so they lived in Lehigh, Meggan and her husband and Kacee.
Correct.
And during that time, did your relationship continue in that vein that you have described with Kacee Terry?
Yes.
All right. How would you describe your relationship with Kacee?
She said I'm the closest thing she had to a dad, so she called me Dad.
Were you aware of what had happened with her own parents?
She didn't tell me. Meggan told me, and so I knew through her.
All right. You were aware that Kacee did not have parents?
Correct.
All right. Were there times that that Kacee and you, I guess, shared any religious beliefs?
Yes.
Can you tell us what that was?
Kacee asked me to give her blessings a few times, several times.
Tell us what a blessing is.
When Jesus was on the earth, he gave his disciples the power that he had to bless and heal. That power has been restored to the earth. I have that. Kacee asked me to come and give her blessings.
You said to bless and heal.
Yes.
How many times do you think you gave blessings to Kacee over the course of time that you knew her?
Several, maybe a dozen.
Several to a dozen? And how many of those did she ask you for as opposed to Meggan asking you for?
A lot of times,
I object to the question in terms of asking about
I
a
can
comparison.
I can rephrase that. My apologies.
Thank you.
Lee, how many times did Kacee directly communicate to you a request for a blessing?
I believe that you have my phone, her phone records. You could see that because generally it was a text because I was working. There were a couple other additional times that she would call me on the phone and ask.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like you have a solid number in mind?
Not in the 10 years.
Sure. When is the last time you recall giving her a blessing, other than August 12th, 2024?
I'm not sure how soon it was before that, but it was a couple of months before that.
Would it have been in the summer, spring, winter?
It was probably summer, I would guess.
And was that one as the result of a request directly from Kacee?
Don't remember, I don't know.
Okay. When you, where would you go to offer these blessings?
Sometimes she was at our house, sometimes it was in her grandparents' house, sometimes it was in houses or apartments that she lived in and rented.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that sometimes she came to you, sometimes you went to her?
Correct. Generally it was I went to her, but
Okay. During any of those times, did it appear to you that she was near death?
No.
And the blessings that you offered, you said they were to bless and heal. Were any of the blessings to help her die faster?
She requested that.
How did she request that?
She asked for a blessing of release, which is not church doctrine.
Could a blessing of release be from pain and suffering?
The priesthood is used for comfort, for healing, for pain. I think what she wanted, well, I know what she wanted. She said she wanted to go back to Heavenly Father.
And what words did you use in conjunction with that blessing?
Don't remember the whole blessing, but I know she was told that when she was ready, Heavenly Father would let her come home.
Was that the essential gist of it?
I think that's the point that she probably didn't want to hear. There was other things that were said about that we needed to prepare to meet God by how we lived, and
How was that blessing, or was it any different than your standard blessings to bless and heal?
every blessing is different because you have to kind of go what the Spirit's telling you to say. I know Kacee told me Mark, her uncle, gave her a blessing and said the same thing I did. And so she said that she kind of felt like that was Heavenly Father's answer, but every blessing is different.
Okay. All right, let me turn to August 12th, 2024. Did you see Kacee on that date?
I did.
What were the circumstances that brought you there? Or, sorry, that made an assumption. What were the circumstances in which you saw her that day?
So we were supposed to be meeting with Meggan that night for dinner. It was our anniversary / Porter going to school, her son. She called and said Kacee wasn't doing well, asked if we could come over. She says, I think this could be it. She's just not doing well.
Okay, and when you
So
say
we-
she, who are you talking about?
Meggan.
And did she call you or text you, or how was this
She called
communicated?
us.
Do you recall what time she called you and told you this?
I'm going to guess probably we just finished dinner, so 7:30ish, I'm guessing.
Do you recall what time you were supposed to meet for dinner?
Well, she had called earlier and said that we weren't going to make it because Kacee was really sick.
Okay. Do you recall what time that was?
I don't know, that was my wife that got that call because I was at work.
So that was passed along to you?
Yes,
All right, and then so you knew your dinner plans were not gonna happen as expected?
yes.
And then about 7:30, you think you got a call from Kacee that Meggan wasn't doing,
That
strike that, reverse.
Kacee.
You got a call from Meggan that Kacee wasn't doing well.
That is correct.
And was that call to you directly or to your wife?
It came over the phone on the car.
Okay, why were you in the car at that point?
We finished dinner, was driving home,
All right.
so we had to turn around.
And was that down in Payson?
It was in Spanish Fork.
Was anybody else with you at that time?
No,
Had you known there to be any plans set up for that day between Meggan and Kacee?
they would have girls' dates every once in a while where they'd get together and watch a movie or talk or visit or whatever girls do when they're together. It was just something they always did, and now that she had it got a little harder for her to do, and she was working, so.
And by she, who are you
Meggan.
referring to?
But they were planning on having a girls' day, girls' event, getting together for that.
How was that conveyed to you?
Because I was watching Porter for a while, and then I took him to his dad, so we could go to dinner. We were all gonna go together, but when she canceled that, then I took him home.
Okay, so earlier in the day, Meggan had asked you to take care of her son so that she could go have this girls' day with Kacee, is that accurate?
Yes, yes.
Do you recall what time of day that was set up?
I don't know, I babysat him a lot right through there. I don't know.
Was it set up the day before or a week, was it set up that same day or when?
No,
Do you know
no,
that?
it was set up before that. I don't know when, but I was retired, so it was easy for me to do.
Okay, so the plan, as you understood it before August 12th, 2024, was that Meggan was going to be spending the day with Kacee so that you would be taken care of?
That is correct.
But you don't recall how many days in advance that was
I
set
do
up?
not.
All right. Okay, you said you got this call and turned around. Where did you go from Spanish Fork? Where you
We went
got
to,
the call?
we went to Casey's house
Where's Kacee's house?
in, I think it's Lehigh.
Do you recall how long it took you to get there?
Half an hour, 45 minutes maybe by the time we got to the next exit.
Were you driving or was your
Was.
wife driving?
I was driving.
When you got to the location, what did you do?
We parked in the front of the house
Did you park on the street or on the driveway or in that
No.
circle drive?
on the park strip,
Okay,
so on the street,
directly in front of the house?
correct.
Okay, and then what did you do?
We walked around to the back of the house.
Why did you do that?
We were asked by Kacee to come to the back so we didn't disturb her grandpa.
Did you, so you talked to Kacee that day?
No, we've been there before,
Okay,
and she just says, hey, when you come, don't bother my grandpa. It's hard for him to get to the door. Just come to the back.
okay. What was the back?
You walk up the driveway around the house, down some steps to a little, like patio. And so normally Kacee would meet us at the door.
Okay. Did Kacee meet you at the door this time?
She did not, Meggan did,
So Meggan met you at the door?
correct.
Did you have to knock or was she just there waiting?
No, she was there waiting.
All right. And when you went into that location, what did you see? Right when you first went in?
Kacee was lying on the bed.
Sorry, before you got to her room, tell us about the.
It's dark. The lights weren't on. Casey's room was at the end of a hallway. The light was on, and so we just walked back there.
How do you proceed from that door to where Casey's room was? Can you just describe that for us a little bit?
There's some kind of a big room when you first walk in, and then you just walk straight. You go right across the room to the hall. There's a couple of doors off that hall. One of them's the bathroom, and then you walk into Casey's room.
Okay. So you walked through the room that was dark, into the hall. Was the hallway light on?
No, it was just the bedroom light that was.
And so when you entered, you said Meggan was with you?
Yes, she led the way.
She led the way, and what did you see when you first entered?
Kacee was lying on the bed on her side. Her breathing was rattling.
What do you mean rattling?
It wasn't, I don't know how to describe it. I call it a death rattle. It was very labored and very kind of jagged. It wasn't smooth and even.
What did you think when you saw that?
That she might be going home. The only time I've heard that breathing is from somebody that was going to die soon.
Had Meggan told you what was going on as you walked from the door to Case's bedroom?
She said she's been like this for a little while. She says she was fine earlier. This conversation went clear to the room. She said she had she said she was sick. Meggan suggested she take some anti-vomit medicine. She said she went in the bathroom, didn't come out for a long time. She went and knocked on the door and said, "Kacee, are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, I'll be out in a minute." She went back in the bedroom. This is what Meggan said. And she said, I waited and waited, and she didn't come out, so I went and knocked on the door again, and she wasn't really answering, so I went in and had to help her get back into bed. A little while later, she just kind of went to sleep and then started breathing really like this.
Was she more specific with you about how long? You said a little while.
No, she was not specific.
Okay. Was that the words she used, a little while?
Again, it's been a while.
Yeah, I
But
understand.
yes, I believe that was pretty close to the word she used.
Okay. Did you suggest calling 911?
She told us she had called the hospice doctor,
She being who?
Meggan, sorry, had called the doctor, left a message and told him what was going on and that she had not heard back.
Did you suggest calling 911?
No, because Meggan had told us that there was a DNR, so she did not want to be resuscitated.
Did she show you a DNR?
No, we didn't ask her to.
Okay. Had you ever seen a DNR for Kacee?
No,
And what is a DNR?
do not resuscitate.
All right, so Meggan told you that she had called the doctor and left a message, but not to call 911 because she had a DNR.
We didn't talk about calling 911.
You didn't talk about it, okay. Did you indicate any concern about Kacee's status?
Well, we were worried, we were wondering if there was a way we could turn her on her back or if she could maybe breathe easier. But that was all.
Okay. If Meggan had not told you there was a DNR, how would you have responded in that situation?
If Meggan had not said there was a DNR, she would have already called. But she had told us long ago that there was a DNR,
Okay.
long time.
You said you wanted to move her to make it easier for her to breathe. Did you do that?
No, she was too hard to move.
And so what did you do?
We talked about when the doctor might call back. We talked about how she was suffering. And it wasn't too long after that Mark came down and asked what was going on.
All right, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Did you actually do the blessing? Do you recall?
I don't recall, we talked about this in your office, I don't recall if I did, but I would guess with my own family, I would have.
And would the words you expect you would have used be the same that you talked about just a few minutes ago?
It probably would have been more along the lines of, Kacee, if you're going home, don't worry, we're okay.
All right. What did you see other than Meggan when you other than Kacee when you entered the room?
Casey's Casey's room was always very spotless. She was very good at keeping her, I mean, whenever I was there. I did notice over by there was a little box with pills in it, a pill bottle, excuse me.
Noticed a box with a pill bottle, where was that?
There was other things in it, but it was over by the window.
Could we pull up exhibit number 4? This has already been admitted. Let me know when you see that on your monitor, sir.
Okay. Well, it was there, but, okay.
Okay, I think it's gonna stay now. All right. Do you recognize that, what that depicts? Do you have that on your screen?
Yeah, I do have it.
Do you recognize that room?
Yes. It just looks different than it did that night.
Okay, how is it different?
It's a lot, like there's more stuff on the bed that I don't remember seeing.
Okay,
Um,
that's where Kacee was, correct?
Yeah, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see there's a little, it looks like a box from here.
Where is it in conjunction with the monitor?
On the right of the monitor, there's a plant and then a black thing, and then there's
I'm not sure we're gonna.
Anyway, I think that's the box, and the only reason I recognize the pill bottle, there was a logo of like Walgreens or something on the top.
Okay,
I don't know what was, but it looked like a pill bottle from that, and then there was a bunch of other stuff, which I don't know what was in it, but it was a pretty full box.
all right. Is the box still there, or are you describing the location?
No, it still looks like it's still there.
Okay, next to that gray lamp?
Right above the mouse.
Gotcha, okay. All right, so you noticed there was a pill bottle in that particular container,
Right.
and that there's more stuff on the bed now. And Kacee was on the bed. How was Kacee?
So Kacee
sitting?
was laying kind of on her side. I could see the scar from her leg.
Okay,
In fact, I went and looked at that specifically because I had heard she had broke her leg. I didn't know the scar was gonna be like that or that big or.
okay.
And then the blanket, there was this white blanket, and there was it was like what's it called? Like a care box. Whenever they got together, they had treats. They kind of partied.
Okay.
As
Was
in-
it literally a box?
I don't know if it was a box, but it was bigger than the shoebox. And the blanket, when Meggan showed us the box and said, "This is what Kacee got me for our visit today,"
Where was the box when you saw it?
Meggan picked it up off of the table, and I think the table is on the left of the recliner there.
Okay, it's to the far left side of Exhibit 4.
Yes, it's kind of out of the picture, you don't see it.
What was in the box, to the best of your recollection?
Like there was some candy or goodies, And then, it seems like there was a drink, but I don't remember that for sure, but there was, the blanket was there, and then the candy.
Candy, a blanket, and possibly a drink, is that what you said?
Yeah, the drink might have actually been on the, I don't remember if it was on the table, on the lamp table, that it was on, or, anyway.
Okay, but you think there was a drink associated with the treat box? To the best of your
That's a long time ago, but,
Right.
but they generally had treats and drinks. They knew each other's favorites. So my guess would be that Kacee would make sure Megan's favorite drink was there.
What was Megan's favorite drink?
I don't know.
Okay.
Kacee knows her likes and dislikes a lot better than me.
Gotcha. Did you have an understanding about who had provided that treat box?
I believe Megan told me Kacee had got it for her.
All right. And to the best of your recollection, when you saw it, it was on the table to the left of the recliner
I believe so.
in the photo. I guess in real life, that would be to the right of the recliner.
In the screen, it's the left of the, Megan had been sitting in the recliner, did sit in the recliner, and it was off to her right, so it would be left of the screen.
Right, gotcha, okay. Did you notice anything on the floor in front of the recliner?
I did not.
And you said Megan, once you entered the room, did she go and sit in the recliner?
We did, eventually, I mean, we were talking for a while, kind of going through everything, and then she did sit there. There's well, you can kind of see behind the door, there's like a desk chair, and my wife sat in that.
And we're talking about the far right side of Exhibit 4
It was, yes,
that just ran away from us?
yes, but yes.
And so your wife was in that kind of desk chair, Megan was in the recliner, where were you?
Standing.
Where were you standing?
I was moving around. I had back surgery not too long before that. Sitting or standing in one place very long, so I paced.
Okay, all right. And you said you were there until Mark came in?
Until after Mark, because we talked. I had never met Mark before, but he came in, told us who he was. I shook his hand, told him who I was, and he asked what was going on.
What brought Mark into the room? Are you aware?
I don't know.
Okay, he just came down, came in, and what was his immediate statement?
I think he was going, well, he said, "What's going on?" Because she's on the bed, breathing hard, and I'm standing there. He didn't know who I was. Megan said that Kacee was not doing well and that she thought she was, because we all thought she had cancer, we thought this was going to be when she was going home.
And so what did Mark do, to the best of your recollection?
He said, we need to call an ambulance. Megan said, there is a DNR, just so you're aware, it's at American Fork Hospital. And he said, well, I don't want her dying in this house. And so he went upstairs. I don't think he has, I think he went upstairs to call.
Did he make any phone calls before he went upstairs?
I don't think he had his phone.
Okay, so he went upstairs, what happened then?
Megan then called Kacee's sister.
Do you know Kacee's sister's name?
Kylie? I think it's Kylie.
I'm testing you today.
I've never met her, so I don't know, but I think it's Kylie.
Did Megan say did she tell you she was going to call Kylie?
I think she said, we need to let Kylie know what's going on.
All right, and so then she called Kylie, what happened?
So she told Kylie, and I couldn't hear the other end, but I heard her tell Kylie, Kacey's not doing too well. I just wanted you to know. And I don't know what was said, but then Meggan said, "Excuse me?" Like she was surprised. My wife could tell you what was said because she was staying close enough. She said she heard the whole thing, but. And then Meggan hung up and said, "We need to go."
Did she tell you why?
She said, Kylie said, "We need to leave, we're not welcome here." And that if we didn't leave right away, she was gonna call the police.
And what did you do?
Well, we said, okay, we left.
How did you leave?
Through the back door.
So out Meggan, or out Kacey's door, back down the hall, and out the patio door again?
Correct.
Did you see anybody as you left?
No,
Did you talk to anybody as you left?
no.
Because if you didn't see him, you didn't talk to him. As you went out the door, did you see anybody arriving?
So we got in our cars and drove down the street to get out of the way, and then waited for the ambulance to come,
Why did you do that?
because Meggan wanted to know if everything was okay, what was happening, and if she was okay. But
Did Meggan approach the ambulance to let them know what was happening with Meggan?
no,
Ah, I did it again. Did Meggan approach
Kacee.
the ambulance to let them know what was happening with Kacee?
no. We were half a block down the street.
Did you stay there? How long did you stay there?
I stayed until we saw the ambulance, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna go home. Renee and her mom stayed,
Renee is who?
my wife, sorry.
Okay, so Renee and Meggan stayed behind.
Correct.
How long did they stay behind? Are you aware of that?
I don't know. I was more shook up by the whole event, so I don't, time didn't quite make sense then.
Where did you go from there?
I went home.
Do you recall or have any memory of how long after you got home, your wife got home?
No, and I probably wouldn't know, because it's not uncommon for them to stay out and talk just before she went home, so sometimes they're out there for 40 minutes visiting.
Okay. One moment. I did not make clear, do you recall what time you arrived at Kacey's house?
And we kind of did talk about, we were eating dinner, probably left about 7:30, halfway home, it was 30 to 45 minutes after that, so 8:30 maybe?
Okay. Do you have a memory of how long you were in the room before Mark came in?
It's hard to remember. I would probably say it's probably 40 minutes. I couldn't stand that long pacing, so
All right, so that's your best estimate?
I would guess somewhere around that.
All right. And during that entire time, what was Kacey's status?
Still breathing the same way. She didn't move. She didn't move a muscle.
Was she conscious?
No,
Was she ever conscious during any of the time you were there?
no,
Were you ever able to get a response from her?
nothing.
One more minute. As you left, what did you take with you?
Nothing.
What did your wife take with her? Did she have a purse or other belongings that she carried along with
I'm sorry, you're asking a guy to know what his wife has with, I don't know.
All right. What did Kacee take with her? What did Meggan take with her? I can't.
Until you showed me that, I thought she took the blanket and stuff with her, but the blanket's right there, so.
And what are you pointing at? The white blanket on the
White
recliner?
blanket, that's the one she said that Kacee bought for her.
All right. Did she take the treat box with her? You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I thought my memory was better than that, but it's not, obviously.
What direction was, there's two pillows on this bed. What direction was Kacee's head?
It was, I believe it was up towards Meggan,
Meaning towards the recliner?
towards the recliner.
All right. Maybe that's it?
I believe.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Accordingly, as Megan's father, we've certainly had plenty of times to talk, right?
Yes,
You've also talked to the police within, I think, a day of Kacee's passing, right?
correct. They came and asked me several questions, about an hour's worth.
Also, just recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, you agreed to go and be interviewed by the prosecutors in this case, right?
That's correct.
And you, notwithstanding the circumstances, you went there and submitted to another interview right before this trial, right?
That is correct.
I'm actually gonna start sort of on the same subject that Ms. Thomas did, but ask you to expand on it a bit. You told us about adopting Meggan and raising Meggan, right?
Yes.
As she grew up and became an adult, sounds like she went to school and did the things necessary to become a nurse.
Correct.
Why do you think she wanted to be a nurse?
She was one of those kids that if she saw a stray cat, thought it was hurt or scared, she'd bring it home and hide it. So I think a big part of that, her grandfather, who she lived with before we got married, was kind of her best friend. She didn't have a dad. He would check her out of school and take her to the zoo, or they just were buddies and they hung out. He got cancer.
So she, as growing up, sort of her dad and her best friend, her grandfather who ultimately got cancer.
It was very hard for her. And I think that kind of got her into that I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to.
Judge, I'm going to object character evidence.
She was asked on direct about how he knew her. I think the question was his relationship, and tell me about your daughter.
I'll overrule it. You can respond.
I think then she decided that she wanted to help people. And In high school, she took classes to be a CNA. She worked geriatrics at night during high school, and loved it. She loved the people there. She would go over and visit with them even when she wasn't working.
Judge, again, this is beyond the scope of Rule 405, particular circumstances to prove character.
Same response.
I asked what the relationship was, not what her character was.
Talked about how he knew her, talked about his relationship with Meggan, and explored that. I get it that she wanted to be limited, but I should be entitled to expand on it.
I'll allow it, and the state can redirect, follow up.
Let me just interrupt, and I'll try to do it more on a question and answer basis for sure, but on the subject of cancer, have you had cancer?
3 times.
Describe that a little bit and maybe how that also might have affected Meggan.
I've had oral cancer 3 times. I have most of my tongue has been removed and been replaced by a part from my wrist. That was after the 3rd surgery. I had to relearn how to talk. At one point I said I wasn't going to go through this again.
When you say that, you said that to make that known to Meggan?
I did. Her response was that it was a hard decision to make.
By the way, when you said you didn't want to go through it again, you mean
I didn't want to go through the surgery again and have them.
if you didn't do the surgery, would you pass away?
I would. And the doctor had told me it would be very bad for the family. I talked to my family, and they all said they would support my decision.
The decision to choose your own path
Correct.
from life into the Heavenly Father. Is that the decision you're talking about?
Yes.
And that would be respected.
Meggan told me she would respect that decision, but that she would miss me.
We're glad you're here. Let's turn to Kacee. You were asking questions about Kacee and how you knew her. You answered that it was because she became friends with Meggan, right?
Very good friends, yes.
And when you say very good, of course, obviously, you must have seen a bit of a development in that relationship. You said you saw it over about, I think, 10 years or so, maybe 8 or 9 from Kacee's passing, but did it develop into a pretty remarkable friendship?
Yeah. They talked almost every day. Meggan talked to us about Kacee quite a bit. She came to birthday parties with my grandkids and bought them gifts. So we were like her adopted family.
And I wanted to flesh that out a little bit, but when the way Meggan acted with her best friend, her grandfather, who ultimately died from the cancer, you describe that as essentially unconditional love.
Yes, definitely.
As Meggan, in her relationship that grew, would you agree that she became best friends with Kacee?
Yes. I believe they shared things with each other that they wouldn't tell anybody else.
say it got close enough that you would characterize it as one of unconditional love?
I do believe it was.
Now, when she was having, through the course of this relationship, Kacee certainly expressed to you, and it was your understanding that she was sick, right?
Yes. That started really at the first.
That she was going to die from cancer. That's what you understood, right?
Yes.
For years, that was regularly and constantly given by Kacee to you as her condition, right?
That is correct.
Not only that, Kacee would regularly and constantly press upon you and the family that she wanted release from great suffering. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, this is, you described it as the adopted family. Did you know that on her phone contact for you is Dad?
I didn't know that, but whenever she texted me, it started with Dad.
And her representation to you was that she needed an adopted family. She needed a family because she didn't have one, right?
She told me there was only one person in her family that she trusted, and that was her Uncle Mark.
And I'm sorry in advance a little bit for this, I guess, because, I mean, it sounds like you got very close to Kacee, right?
Not as close as Meggan, but yeah, I helped her move a couple of times. I mean, it's just kind of what you do for your kids, so we tried to make sure she had a good Christmas, had gifts, made sure she came to Thanksgiving dinner, those kind of things.
Did you also want to provide her comfort and care and connection with what you know now was all a complete lie, but in connection with what she was convincing you was cancer? Do you want to care for her?
We just didn't know what to do.
And look, this happened over a long period of time.
Right.
I imagine you sometimes
But-
had your doubts.
I mean, she would tell us that she went to this doctor and what he said, and we were kind of like, what do we do? How do we help?
And again, she was talking about not only all of this suffering and the fact that she said she was going to die, she was terminally ill, right?
Yes, she told us that early on. Took my wife to Disneyland because she says, I'm dying soon. This is my last big trip.
So as this continued to be the case, imagine you would have your doubts at times or be a little bit confused about the fact that she was continuing to live on even though she continued to say she
Yeah.
was dying.
If it's the last trip, 10 years after that, you start saying,
Did that change how you treated and loved her?
no.
So even though you would begin to have your doubts about whether this person was telling the truth about such things, you continued to pour out your love and affection and help to her?
Yes.
And as you indicated, among those things were trying to provide spiritual comfort to her, is that right?
When she asked, we tried.
The subject of blessings came up, and that's an example. But even outside of that, was your belief and understanding, or at least your belief based on your relationship with Kacee, that she thought you could help her spiritually and give her spiritual comfort.
I think she was hoping that I would be able to give her away,
A way to go from this
get
world.
what she wanted.
So in general, did you feel like she would sometimes not only, I won't say use you, but communicate with you and have a relationship with you in the fatherly way, but also in a spiritual way?
Yes, there were times when she would ask me why she still was here, why she couldn't go home, why there were times when she asked for another blessing, and I'd just say, Kacee, you had one. Heavenly Father's already gave you the answer. What you're asking for,
And
Heavenly Father has already answered, so I can't go past that.
so she was, as I think you said, regularly, and this is happening over the course of years, right? That she is constantly talking about wishing that you could somehow even induce or help, or could be a connection that would free her from the misery that she was suffering in her life, right?
Yes.
The misery of her claims of having no family other than your family, right?
And her Uncle Mark.
Except
Because
for
she
Mark
always
is there.
mentioned him.
Mark was there for
Yeah.
her.
So, but yes,
Yeah.
I think she was using me for that.
And then, as you said, this constant claim of cancer, terminal cancer, and the miserable health condition she was in relation to that, right?
And then hospice.
Well, she said even she had to have hospice indicating an end of life, right?
Correct, yes.
Now, she convinced you that that was real, right?
Correct.
These cancer, family matters, hospice, pain, you now know it's all false. Right?
Yes.
But you believed it then?
Yes.
And just on the, again, a little bit on those blessings, you mentioned that wherever she might live at the time when she was asking for blessings in relation to passing from this earth to the next, that they included places she lived, right? Where Kacee lived, you'd go there,
Yes.
because she'd ask.
Yes.
And then that included where she ultimately was on August 12th.
Correct.
I've been calling it Mark's house, but the house she went over to. You had been there before
Yes.
and been summoned there by her to give her because she's asking you to confer these blessings on the same subject. Is that right?
That is correct.
Now, Kacee never spoke to you directly about suicide, right?
No.
And for that matter, Meggan never spoke to you directly about suicide, right? Of Kacee's suicide.
What she would say is Kacee wants to go home so bad.
Meggan would communicate to you the same things that you're describing Kacee did in terms of the constant and communication from her best friend that her best friend wanted to pass.
Correct.
Because she was in misery, right?
Yes.
Because of her cancer and health problems.
Yes, including showing the emails from Becky, who was supposed to be the hospice nurse.
Sometimes there was even some events that Meggan shared with you related to Kacee's constant outreach on the subject of passing, of dying, of being miserable, of wishing Meggan could help her somehow, and asking Meggan as a confidant. You saw those communications that came from Kacee? Some of them.
Some, not everything. I think there were some confidences that she
But-
didn't share.
Let me talk about that. Never the word suicide or the discussion that either Kacee would commit suicide or Meggan would be agreeable that was okay, right?
No.
And in your church doctrine, suicide is wrong, right?
That is correct.
And that is a teaching
Of the church,
of
yes.
the church.
Yes.
With that backdrop, you learned on August 12th that there was a circumstance where Kacee was at her home, sick. That's what your understanding was, right?
That she was not doing well, yes.
And frankly, might pass, might die.
Correct. Yes.
And that, consistent with other times, was her desire to have you be there to give a blessing. Remember, in that call, in the communications you got to be summoned over to that house included for the ability to provide a blessing.
No, that's not what Meggan called and said she's not doing well. I think she might go.
Okay.
Can you come over?
It was at the house after you
It
got
wasn't
the
any,
blessing?
correct, there was no
Okay.
mention of a blessing.
Okay. You went, though, I mean, didn't you go in case that it was true that she was, that Kacee might pass?
We went to support Meggan with her friend.
With her friend who might pass, though?
Yes.
I mean, it was the idea that this might actually be a circumstance where a person you treated as a daughter
Yep.
and your actual adopted daughter, who were best friends, might be in a place where she would die.
They would need help.
And given the history and everything else that had gone on, I mean, it's not like you called the police.
No, they were, I mean,
You didn't
didn't even
call
think about it.
doctors. You didn't think about any of those things because this was what was expected, right?
Correct.
This is what Kacee had said she wanted, right?
She said she was dying,
And
and
what
hospice said she was dying, and
Kacee would work very hard to make clear to you that if she died, she did not want to be resuscitated. Right?
she had made that clear to Meggan, and Meggan had told us that.
Well, she had talked to you directly.
Well, she had
about it.
said that she wanted to go, and
For years,
she asked several times, can you please give me a blessing of release?
though, I think you said for years she had talked to you about that, notwithstanding that was her desire, that she had a DNR.
It was assumed that, yes.
And that belief that she had a DNR, I mean, you never asked to see it, right?
No.
But to you, didn't that mean that even if I was at a doctor's, I wouldn't want any help, I would want to pass?
Correct.
I take it that was probably not very surprising, given how much she had told you that already, right?
Yeah.
And asked for blessings and stuff, right?
My parents had DNRs, so I knew what they were, and I knew what that meant.
So when you arrived there, the point is that if it appears that Kacee is in a condition that she might die, it was never your intent, with all of the history and knowledge, that you were going to call the police, right?
There was no reason to.
and, or call doctors, or call people who might come and stop her from dying. You knew that you wouldn't be doing that.
No, the hospice doctor had already been called.
You've learned later there's no hospice doctor, that was.
We did
all-
not know that at the time, but
Kacee
yes.
Kacee had convinced you of that.
yes.
Excuse me one moment. When you got there and went in the house, and you have described some of the things you saw, and in fairness, it was a long time ago, right? You brought that up. You're doing your best with your memory. Until today, notwithstanding your availability that you made to the prosecutors and the police, did anyone show you that picture of the room?
No,
Did anybody show you any photos or anything to help refresh your recollection in about what you saw in the room that night?
no.
So the prosecution today, that picture they showed you cold, right?
Correct.
Could be wrong about a few things based on memory compared to a photograph.
Obviously,
Possible that what you took to be a pill bottle might not have been a pill bottle. Could have been that candle that was sitting there and looks like it has a label on it.
if it has a lid, well, this had a lid on it. So I don't know, maybe.
You,
I mean, it was cramped packed. There
One
was a
of the
lot in the
things-
box, I don't know.
I'm sorry to interrupt. One of the things also that, I mean, you just learned today, for instance, from the photograph, that the white blanket that Kacee had bought for Meggan was draped over that
Correct.
recliner chair, right?
Right.
So you thought there was this goodie box and some things, but as you just sit here today with no one having helped you with pictures or anything, is it fair to say some things you remember may not actually be correct?
Definitely different than,
But to the best of your abilities today, you talked about going in with your wife, right?
yes,
Renee.
yes.
As you got there, it sounds like the condition of Kacee was pretty much how you may have expected. She was not conscious. She wasn't conscious.
Correct.
And the whole time you were there, I think you've already said she wasn't conscious and didn't move.
Correct.
I think were your words.
Correct.
That's true when Mark came down, right? She wasn't thrashing around or moving or anything.
No, no.
And while you were there, you gave what you thought you could in way of an appropriate spiritual blessing.
I don't know.
Oh,
if, based on memory, I don't know.
okay.
But if she's like family, and so I would normally, for family, give a blessing.
By the way, I kind of missed this, but Kacee made you believe that she told you that Mark gave her blessings, right?
Yes,
And she made you believe that Mark gave her the same sorts of blessings, the blessings to pass upon death, to give her spiritual comfort in passing. In the
sorry, no, what she told me was that Mark gave her a blessing that said exactly the same thing I said, which was that when it was time to go, she could go home, but not that she could be released.
That's my point, is just that she made you believe that she told you that Mark's blessings were for the same purpose and related to passing.
That she'd ask him for blessings, and that his words were pretty much the same as mine.
And yours were about passing into the next life.
Well, what she asked for, but
All right, so when you go in, you think she was in a condition that if it was your loved one, you would have given one of those blessings, even though, again, memory, to the best of your recollection, you don't exactly remember it. Is that what?
Correct.
All right. while you're in there, you had some discussions, it sounded like, with Meggan, who said some things, including that through the day, at some point, Kacee had left her presence, gone into the bathroom, had been where she couldn't see her and know what she was doing, right?
Yes.
And described that thereafter, Kacee seemed to deteriorate. She seemed to get ultimately to the condition that she got when she called you and Renee and said, I don't think she's gonna make it, do you want?
Yeah, she needed help back to the bed.
Now, one thing that Meggan didn't tell you was that Meggan knew that Kacee had asked Meggan to come over to be part of Kacee committing suicide, right? Meggan didn't tell you that.
No.
Meggan didn't ever tell you or show you all the messages that had to do with Kacee committing suicide, right?
No.
Suicide, according to your religion, is wrong.
That is correct.
Ultimately, you spoke about coming in, that the light was on in the room where Kacee was. The light was on, right?
Yes, it was dim, but it was on, yes.
And when you went in, when you're going down the hall, that light is on, right?
Yes,
Was the door open at the time?
yes,
So you have an open door, you're going down the hall in Mark's house with the light of the room on.
correct.
Okay, and then you get in there, and did you stay in that position? Where the door was open with the light was on while you were there?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Okay.
as far as I know, there's no reason to close it.
As far as you remember, that was the condition of the circumstances. You certainly weren't trying to hide or anything, or
No,
keep anyone from knowing you were there, were you?
no,
You parked where you parked because that's where Kacee had always told you to park,
correct.
and you'd been there a number of times to see Kacee.
Yes,
Then Mark comes in, as you described, and I think you said, well, she's not dying in this house, is what he said.
yes,
And you expressed that she did not want assistance, and she did want to pass without being resuscitated, right?
that's what Meggan told Mark, yes.
And that was also your belief, though, we already covered that. I mean, you were there too, you believed that that's what Kacee wanted as well, right?
Correct.
All right.
There was one part that Mark and I talked about too, was, he says, has she taken anything? And he says, she's always taken things, but as a family, we never know what she's taken.
Did you know did she share with you about her addiction?
No, but I suspected it.
And her, I'm talking about it, but wasn't clear, sorry, Kacee's addiction. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes,
Okay, so you've described, we'll walk you through again, but this phone call happens in Meggan. Do you remember that Meggan initiated the call to
yeah,
Kacee?
she's the one that called.
So she calls Kylie from that room at that time with all of you there.
Yes,
And then you're not privy to the full call, but you see the reaction that Meggan has, right?
yes,
And I think you said it was stunned or shocked.
correct,
She got emotional,
yes,
she being Meggan.
yes.
Did you understand that at that time it was because of what was being told to her on the phone by Kylie?
the tone of voice told me, when she said, "Excuse me," told me that it wasn't what she expected.
So your interpretation was that she was calm, she called Kylie, and then everything changed after that phone call?
Correct. Yes,
And your understanding was made clear that from that phone call, it was an accusation that Meggan had done something to cause the death and had done something wrong, right?
it was that we've got to leave. She says we have to leave or she's calling the police.
Did Meggan talk to you about the fact that she had accused her right then and there of killing Kacee?
I'm not sure of that. My wife said she heard the whole phone call, so she mentioned it.
Now, when you left, you didn't pick up anything off the floor or take anything away from that room, right?
No.
You saw your wife Renee, she didn't pick up anything off the floor or take anything out of that room, right? As far as you know.
I don't really pay attention to those things.
Okay.
I assume she had her purse, but
You did say that, and you're not sure exactly what Meggan came or left with in terms of that.
I was
Certainly
too
didn't,
focused on other things.
as you left, you certainly didn't see her holding a big orange Phantom box.
No.
Think you would have seen if that was the case?
Yes.
All right. So as you guys walk out together, you're still together when you walk out onto the patio, back to the cars and leave, right? Is that right?
Correct.
And certainly didn't see anybody discard anything in a garbage can or anything like that.
No, I didn't.
Then when you left, you said you parked down the street a bit, right?
Correct.
And Meggan and Renee ultimately stayed there for a while, and you left and went home. I think you said, you were suffering, is that right?
So my wife didn't want Meggan to be driving anywhere because of how upset she was alone.
Same for you, it sounds like. You're pretty
Yes.
rattled.
It was not how I expected the night to go.
Your anniversary night?
Yeah.
Had anybody wanted to speak to you or interview you, you would have, right?
I'm sorry about,
If had anybody wanted to speak to you or interview you, you would have answered the questions that you knew, right?
about Kacee and
About anything
that.
what
Yes.
happened?
Yeah, yes. I
You
think
went
the
home.
officers were there for quite a while.
Your understanding is that their EMT were there for a while and left? Were you still there when the ambulance left?
No, I left as soon as it turned the street because there was nothing I could help.
Well, but I mean, you stayed there in the area sufficient to see that ambulance leave and turn the street, or come?
Come.
Okay.
As soon as the ambulance
Sorry.
turned the corner
Right.
to come to the house,
All right.
I left.
I'm sorry about that. So you're out there, see an ambulance arrive, and you left, right?
Correct.
Your understanding is that Meggan and your wife were there a little longer,
Yes.
and then saw that the ambulance then left.
I don't know how long they stayed.
At this moment there. Thank you, Lee. You agree?
Yeah, I'm sorry to have some more questions for you, and they're not gonna make much sense because they're all over the place, so forgive me for jumping around. a
We
little
go through it. Let's do it.
bit. Let me ask you first, you had mentioned a trip to Disneyland that Kacee went on
Really?
with Renee and with
Meggan,
Meggan.
yes.
When was that?
Let's see, it was for my wife's 60th birthday, so that would have been a while ago. So it was for her 60th birthday, so October, November-ish timeframe.
Not to give away any secrets.
Let's see, yeah, that would have been 2014?
Okay. And you said it was for your wife's 60th birthday, but you had also said it was because Kacee said it was gonna be her last big trip.
That's what my wife said she told her.
All right, who paid for that trip?
Kacee did.
All right, so this dying woman was paying for 3 people to go to Disneyland?
Says that she might as well spend it while she had her time.
Mr. Williams asked you about a lot of questions regarding your relationship with Kacee, and after you found out the truth of some things that you felt she was using you. Is that a fair statement?
I'm sorry. Can you
Yeah.
kind of clarify that? Because that kind of takes me by surprise. Say that
Okay.
again.
Your relationship with Kacee, she was treating you eventually as a father, and you treated her sort of as a daughter, correct?
Yes, yes.
All right. And that seemed to you to be important to her, that relationship?
I believe all of us are that way. Yes.
Right. And did it appear to you to be filling a gap in her life that you were filling for her?
Again, I believe all of us want people that love us in our lives, and
Okay, but Kacee specifically is who I'm
yeah,
talking
but
about.
I think it filled a spot that she needed.
All right. You felt that you and your wife filled a need in Kacee for attention and love?
Love, yes.
Okay. You talked about Mr. Williams talked a lot about the blessings, but let me just clarify that for just a little bit more. You had told us that Kacee had asked you for blessings before, correct?
Correct, yes.
Did Meggan also ask you for blessings for Kacee?
There were times when Meggan would say, hey, Kacee was wondering if you could come and give her a blessing. She's available on this night.
Okay, so Meggan would convey that
There were
to you.
times, yes.
Any idea how often that happens?
I don't even know how many blessings I gave her.
Would you
So-
say that, what percentage of the time were the requests from Kacee directly versus from Meggan?
I don't know, probably 50% of the time.
Okay.
I would have been hard to get a hold of at times, so they talked every day, it would have been easier.
And your understanding that they talked every day came from Meggan, correct? Is that yes?
Yes, sorry.
You talked about with Mr. Williams that it is a teaching of your church that suicide is wrong,
Correct.
and Meggan grew up in your faith as well?
That is correct.
So Meggan would have also known that?
That is correct. She served a mission for the church, so she's aware of its doctrine well.
All right. And so in that vein, she had told you that day, August 12th, Meggan told you that she was going for a girls' day
Correct.
with Kacee.
Yes.
She didn't tell you that she was going there to watch or help Kacee die by suicide.
She did not.
Did you learn that later at some point in time?
Much later.
Or how did that come to your attention?
I believe it was Scott that told me that after she was arrested.
So Meggan has never told you that she went to watch or help Kacee
No.
commit suicide?
Megan has not told me
Mr. Williams tried to characterize the blessings.
Objection to characterizing what I tried to characterize, Judge, that's commentary. I've asked it to be question and answer.
I'll rephrase, thank you. Mr. Williams asked you whether, or asked you about blessings to pass.
that. Yes.
Do you recall those
Yeah,
questions?
blessings of release.
Right,
is what-
it was a blessing of release, not
Yes.
a blessing to pass, correct?
That's what Kacee wanted, and that's the term she used, was blessing of release.
Okay, but there's no such thing, is
There
there?
is no such thing in our doctrine.
So you did what you could do within what you believed your parameters were,
That is correct.
which is a blessing of comfort and, I can't remember how you
Peace.
phrased it. Comfort and peace.
So when we talked in your office, you asked me if I would have, if anything would have changed if she said she wanted suicide. Remember us talking about that?
Well, let's talk about my next question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You said that when Mark came into that room, I really am all over the place, I apologize.
No, it's fine.
Mark asked when he came into the room whether Kacee had taken anything. Do you
Yes.
recall that question?
Yes.
Did Meggan tell him what Kacee had taken?
Afterwards, he said that she was supposed to take something because of her nausea,
Okay.
but that's all that she said.
She didn't tell Mark what Kacee had taken?
No.
You were talking about the hospice care that you believed Kacee was under. How long did you understand that she was in hospice care?
Goes the memory again, 5 months, 6 months?
Okay, so just toward the end of
Yes.
her life, you
Yes.
believed she was in hospice?
Correct.
Was that information conveyed to you from Kacee or from Meggan?
Megan would show me phones, messages from Becky, which now isn't really Becky, but, and it said Becky, from Becky, and it gave vital signs, and when we're on hospice, sometimes it doesn't go like we think. Those type of things were said.
All right, so I think we have to clarify that a little bit. You said Becky that wasn't Becky. What does that mean?
So when I saw the messages from this Becky, that was the hospice nurse, is what I was led to believe.
Led to believe by whom?
Well, it said Becky on the text message.
And the text message was
And it
to
was
who?
and it was to Megan, and it was on her phone.
Okay.
And she said, this is the hospice nurse that is working with and is checking in on Kacee every day.
Were those messages coming from Kacee's phone?
I didn't even look. I
You
don't.
looked just at the
I
message?
just looked at the message.
Okay, and Meggan showed you those?
Yes.
In that room, Mr. Williams was asking you about about the white blanket specifically.
Yes.
Is it possible that there was a white blanket in addition to the blanket that Kacee gave Meggan that night?
I don't believe so,
Okay, why not?
because it was, Megan was sitting in the chair, and there was no other blanket on it at that point when she sat down.
Okay,
But in that picture, there was a white blanket on the chair.
all right. But you don't know when that picture was taken, correct?
No.
And there were other things in that room that had moved locations, you indicated to us when you looked at that
Yeah,
photo?
stuff on the floor, those type of things.
And stuff on the bed,
Yes.
all right. And the box, that the tree
Yeah.
box was no longer there, correct?
Okay.
All right. After Meggan talked to Kylie and hung up and said she told us to leave or she was gonna call the police, is that
Right.
fair summary? Did you ask why she would be calling the police?
No, we left.
Okay,
The last thing that I wanted to do was cause, it's hard enough when you have somebody sick to cause more rift in the family.
all right, but why would police need to be called?
I didn't ask.
Did that concern you?
Needed to leave first and ask questions later.
All right. When you came in, and you saw Kacee in this condition and understood it to be near the end of her life, is that a fair statement?
I was a little surprised, but yes,
Why were you surprised?
because I have not seen, for all the time I've known her, she's been sick, and now all of a sudden, she's looking really, sick.
Okay.
She didn't look that way ever, and I think both of you asked me that question.
All right. This is the first time you saw her so close to that?
And breathing like that.
All right. Did you suggest to bring Uncle Mark, her uncle that she said she cared about, into the room?
I didn't even
To
know
be with her?
I didn't even know he was there.
Okay, but you didn't
We
suggest that
didn't,
to
we didn't go to
Meggan?
the front because of Grandpa. I've been there several times and have never met Mark, so I
Did you-
didn't even know if he was there.
Sorry. Did you suggest that any family might want to be with Kacee if she was near the end of her life?
No.
This DNR that you talked about, did Kacee, well, I think you told Mr. Williams, Kacee never told you directly that she had a DNR, correct?
No.
And you never saw one? So your understanding of the DNR all came from Meggan? Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. And when you came in and you saw Kacee in this, breathing in a death rattle, as you described it, did you feel that she might be entitled to comfort care?
Explain comfort care.
Help to relieve pain and suffering?
Did I think that she needed a blessing to do that right then? Is that the question you're asking me?
Did you think that medical help would provide her some ease in passing into the next stage of existence?
I didn't even think of that. I was more concerned about her breathing, and the doctor's been called. We're waiting for him to call back, so I assumed that the hospice doctor would know what to do.
All right. And as long as you were there, you never heard from any hospice doctor, correct?
No.
You talked a little bit about having been through cancer yourself. I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm glad you have come
Thank you.
through it.
Thank you.
And you said that, tell us again how you described that to your family about not wanting to go through that again.
So the first time they cut a chunk of my tongue out the middle, it just has to heal. So they give you stuff to spray on it for the pain. The second time they cut a third of my tongue out. And so I just had a big hole. I couldn't talk. I had to learn how to talk again. And very, very painful.
Sounds like it would hurt like the dickens.
The third time they cut a piece out of my wrist, made a new tongue out, cut my throat, and a vein, and put a vein in over into the part they put in to make my new tongue, and then stitched it onto the existing part that's still remaining. I I didn't want to go through the pain again.
And so what did you express to Meggan specifically about that?
So I just told my family that I didn't think I could handle going through that pain anymore. That took months for that, and I didn't want to have to learn how to talk again, especially if it was going to come back in 2 years and go through the same thing again.
In expressing that to your family, specifically to Meggan, were you expressing an intent to die by suicide?
No,
What was your intent?
no, not to have the surgery done.
And you said that Meggan supported your decision?
She said she understood it, that she would support it, that she would miss me.
She understood you were in tremendous pain?
Oh yeah, she knew.
Did she encourage you to die by suicide?
No, that's against our beliefs.
Did she suggest methods of suicide?
No,
Did she offer to help you commit suicide?
no. That is totally contrary to her personality.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, any follow-up?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
This witness step down,
Yes,
be released.
as far as the state's concerned.
Yes. No,